August 2nd, 1776. 50 of the 56 delegates representing the continental United States signed the Declaration of Independence, which would change world history forever. This one single moment in time, this one signing, would change the course of human history, defining what America would be about, its principles, in the first sentence of this document. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unless you're black, unless you're gay, unless you're a woman, unless you're native, unless you're Mexican, unless you're too fat, hell, even white men sometimes, unless if you're unfaithful. No, really, you could get arrested for fucking another man's wife, which is something I wish existed in my state, because my wife's boyfriend does this all the time. But hey, at least he let me FaceTime her last night. But with this being said, what I'm trying to say is, a moment in time can shift empires, and it can shift the course of human history. 1 second in time can do that. Now let's go to February 1st, 2015. With the score 28-24 against the New England Patriots, Seattle Seahawks were driving the football down the field. Famous Epstein file enthusiast Russell Wilson completed an insane throw to Jermaine Kearse, and they were 2 Marshawn Lynch runs away from winning the Super Bowl, giving Seattle Seahawks their 2nd Super Bowl in a row, stopping Tom Brady from winning his 4th. There was so much on the line in this one play that the ripple effects from this one play will be felt for years on after. And in this play, they get a clean snap, Russell Wilson's passing the ball, and just like that, well, you know how it goes.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal. Malcolm Butler, who almost made the phenomenal play that wound up in Kearse's arms. There are flags on the field for a celebration. Amazing.
I don't think we can state how much this play impacted NFL history. It impacted the course of maybe 2 dynasties in the NFL. But if there's not another man to do it, it's me, Zaza Sports. So with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into it. Whoa, 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 whoa! If you don't want to be in the Epstein files like Russell Wilson, like, comment, subscribe. Now let's get into this video. This play broke the 2010 Seahawks in more than one way possible. So with that being said, it all starts with the man at the top. The infamous Pete Carroll. His meteoric rise with USC, winning a national championship, having some of the greatest teams of the 2000s, is an all-time story. Landing another job in the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks, leading one of the greatest defenses of all time in 2013, and having multiple historic moments with this franchise. Honestly, one of the most iconic coaches in Seattle Seahawks history, if not their greatest coach of all time. His resume was flawless throughout the city. He did nothing but win, and he brought a franchise that never seen real glory outside of one rigged Super Bowl in the biggest spotlight possible, Super Bowl 48 against the Denver Broncos. Now, to act like this team wasn't loaded, that would be an understatement. You had Defensive Player of the Year candidate Richard Sherman, you had Defensive Player of the Year candidate Earl Thomas, you had MVP candidate Bobby Wagner, you had second team All-Pro Cam Chancellor, Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett rushing the passer, arguably the greatest defense in NFL history. When it comes to modern day NFL defenses, they weren't human. This team led by Pete Carroll is the greatest modern day defense in NFL history, and it's not close. They are the greatest team of the 21st century as well. Now on offense, they were decent. Russell Wilson, he's a Hall of Famer. Marshawn Lynch, he might get in 30 years. Or he might not. He has 10,000 yards rushing, but that's not the point of this. Let's talk about this 2013 Seattle defense. This 2013 Seattle defense, coached by Pete Carroll, held teams to only 14 points per game, only allowed 231 points the entire season, which led the league in both stats. Leading the league in takeaway, yards allowed, and points allowed, a trifecta we haven't seen in the NFL since the 1985 Bears. They only allowed 16 touchdown passes all year. This Pete Carroll coach defense is one of the greatest defenses of all time, like I stated, and they would roll to the Super Bowl against one of the greatest offenses of all time in the 2013 Denver Broncos, and they would embarrass them. It didn't even look like they were playing the same brand of football on the field, and they embarrassed embarrassed the Peyton Manning-led Broncos, and that made Pete Carroll one of the most respected coaches in the league. He took this Seattle Seahawks franchise that has been poverty, that has known really nothing except futility for most of their franchise history, and won a Super Bowl with them, and completely embarrassed the greatest offense of all time. He became a rare coach that had a national championship in college and a Super Bowl. And guess what? The next year, after an overtime win in the NFC Championship against the Green Bay Packers, guess where the Seattle Seahawks were going? Back to the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. At this moment, people were talking about dynasty. People were saying Pete Carroll is arguably the best coach in the NFL. He built a culture in Seattle that you could feel when you played them, that you could feel when you walked into CenturyLink Field. This was supposed to be the dynasty of the 2010s. They had a young defense, they had a Hall of Fame quarterback, and they had an elite run game. So let's fast forward to the play. Pete Carroll is watching on as his supposed dynasty Seattle Seahawks have a gimme touchdown. All they have to do is run the ball. Pete Carroll doesn't call a run. And just like that, as you guys know, intercepted by Malcolm Butler on the goal line. Unreal. And this is why I really started with Pete Carroll. Because the cracks in this franchise, the cracks in this dynasty, the cracks in this team that we thought was made of iron at the time, start becoming noticeable because of this one Pete Carroll decision. Almost instantaneously. A lot of guys say that he lost the locker room with this one play call. Nobody could believe it at the time. Nobody can believe it now. And a lot of people to this day will blame this Super Bowl loss on Pete Carroll. Potential dynasty floundered because of one wrong move, one bad decision, and it's all gone in a blink of an eye. Just like me and my wife's marriage. Actually, we're still married. She just wants to see other people. And just like Seattle Seahawks fans, I fucking hate the fact that that happened. Now, if you're talking to me personally as a 49ers fan, whew, let me chill. As a Niners fan, this is the type of shit I pray to God for every fucking night before I go to sleep. As a Niners fan, I hope this shit happens this Sunday. I hate the Seahawks. It's a shitty city. They're the gay Eagles. And honestly, just the whole city of Seattle's soft and no one wants to go there. Bunch of pussy ass niggas. Okay, let's get back on track. Like I said, the fallout was imminent for the Seattle Seahawks and Pete Carroll. While Pete Carroll became the face of the worst coaching decision in sports history, this broke the Seattle Seahawks. And let me go into more detail about it. Defensive leaders openly questioned the decision. Richard Sherman publicly criticized the play call. Players later admitted the locker room was angry and divided. The defense believed the coaching staff didn't trust what had carried the team there in the first place. Cliff Averill said players started questioning, and I quote, "I don't think the team would have bought in more to what Coach Carroll was saying. Instead of going the opposite way, hey, this is what we thought the foundation of the team was, that's not what happened in that particular play." Averill clearly states that the play call made some players question Carroll's leadership and philosophy, which implies a shift in trust after the interception. He also added, a lot of guys got turned off by the message that play sent. Other defensive players like Michael Bennett would state, it was a shock. I think that's what everybody was thinking in the locker room. But I bet in his head a little, referring to Pete Carroll, I bet he wonders what would have happened if he just ran the ball. With the leaders on defense, the identity of the Seattle Seahawks, even more than running the ball was, questioning the coaching staff and the authority all around the team, the cracks led to a demolition. And from this interception and that point on, the Seahawks were never the same. Seattle never returned to the Super Bowl. The Legion of Boom slowly unraveled. Cam Chancellor held out over contract issues. Earl Thomas clashed with coaches and teammates before his exit, and Sherman's relationship with the organization deteriorating, ending with his release. What was once a brotherhood, what was once one unit, turned into nothing but tension and questions with no answers in sight. On the field, the dominance faded. The defense that once terrified the league began slipping in rankings. Close playoff losses piled up, including heartbreaking defeats to Carolina, Atlanta, and Green Bay. Games that felt heavier because everyone knew this was supposed to be a dynasty, and one moment changed the outcome of this franchise forever. That interception didn't just end a game, it changed how the Seahawks saw themselves. Instead of being remembered alongside the greatest dynasties in NFL history, instead of being remembered for beating the greatest offense of all time in the Super Bowl, the Legion of Boom became a what if, 1 yard away from immortality, and one play away from falling apart. Now let's look on the other end. Thomas Edward Pussy Ass Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. At this point in his career, the Patriots dynasty was at a lull period, going a decade since their last NFL championship, winning against Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb in 2004, two players who were long retired at this point, and losing 2 in a row to underdog Giants teams. In one of those Super Bowls, they had a chance to go undefeated and failed in awe-inspiring fashion. Now, if the Patriots lose this Super Bowl because Pete Carroll decides to run the ball instead of passing it at the 1-yard line, Brady falls to 3-3 in Super Bowls and has a higher trajectory to climb to eclipse Joe Montana in a bunch of people's eyes. The 10-year title drought continues, and here's the kicker. Who knows if they win another title? The psychological edge that fuels the 28-3 comeback may never exist. Due to Super Bowl 49 and seeing that Jermaine Kearse catch and seeing the game blow up in their face so fast, looking like an imminent loss, but still pulling through and still winning for the Patriots. I'm no psychiatrist, but I can tell you that did wonders for them psychologically. They had total belief in Tom Brady, they had total belief in this defense, they had total belief in Bill Belichick, and they had total belief even if the house catches on fire, they still got water to take it out. And that's what the 28-3 comeback was built on. And I can't guarantee anything, but I can almost guarantee if this Malcolm Butler interception doesn't happen and the Seattle Seahawks drive with a minute left and get a game-winning touchdown, this belief in this organization would not be the same as it was during Super Bowl 51. This is a complete hypothetical. Now imagine Tom Brady being 3-4 and going against the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles. That would be an absolute legacy game. The media would switch Tom Brady from being inevitable, being the mountain you cannot climb, to being the ruler of the NFL, to declining. And even the loss from this game, which Tom Brady, let's say he still plays great, still throws 500 yards, it would feel different when legacy and momentum is gone. What I'm trying to say to you is, this interception more than likely fundamentally changed the whole history of the NFL throughout the 2010s. With this being said, I hope this shows you how much this play changed the course of NFL history and how one play can change decades of history going forward. This is why I believe this is the most consequential play in NFL history. And now we got this Super Bowl again. I don't think the stakes are as high as it was in 2014, but it should be a good game. But who knows? The consequences of any Super Bowl, any game, any moment can matter in NFL history, and you will never know the ripple effect of what could have been. With that being said, like, comment, subscribe. I fucking hate my wife's boyfriend, and I'll catch y'all boys later. Peace.